The diplomatic chamber aboard the Sovereign's Pride fell silent as Warlord Cravish's heir, Prince Zorak, bared his triple rows of serrated teeth. The young Draknari stood at nearly 7 feet tall despite his adolescence, his obsidian scales gleaming under the harsh lighting of the warship's command deck. Every species representative in the room took an instinctive step backward, every species except the humans. Anya Chen stood her ground, arms crossed, watching the display with what could only be described as bemused interest. Beside her, Luis Martinez hadn't even looked up from his datapad, apparently more concerned with the trade agreement's fine print than the apex predator currently posturing before them. "The humans will submit," Zorak hissed, his voice a guttural rumble that vibrated through the deck plating, "or they will be consumed." The Draknari Empire had ruled the 7th sector for 300 cycles, their dominance built on fear, superior firepower, and the simple biological fact that they were terrifying. Adult Draknari could tear through starship hulls with their claws, survive in hard vacuum for short periods, and possessed a bite force that could crush titanium. They were, by every measurable standard, the galaxy's apex predator. Humanity had encountered them 6 months ago. "Did he just threaten to eat us?" Lewis asked, finally glancing up. "I think so," Anya replied, studying Zorak with the analytical gaze of a xenobiologist cataloging a new species, "though I'm not sure if he means it literally or metaphorically." Warlord Cravish, a massive specimen whose scars told stories of 1,000 battles, leaned forward on his throne. "My son speaks truly. Humanity has no claws, no natural armor, no venom. You are soft creatures who require machines to survive even the gentlest of worlds. You will accept our terms or—" Anya stepped forward. The movement was so casual, so utterly devoid of fear or aggression, that it momentarily confused everyone in the room. She walked directly toward Zorak, who tensed, preparing to demonstrate exactly why his species had conquered half the sector. "The human approaches," one of the Draknari advisors shrieked. "Prince Zorak, show her the strength of your bloodline." Zorak lunged with the speed of a striking serpent, his jaws opening wide to deliver a bite that would sever a limb. His teeth, each one a curved dagger designed by evolution to grip and tear, flashed in the light. He bit down on Anya's forearm. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Viridian ambassador fainted. The Krill delegation scrambled for the exits. Lewis sighed and set down his datapad, already reaching for the medical kit at his belt. But Anya just looked down at where the prince's jaws were clamped around her arm, protected by nothing but the standard-issue diplomatic uniform sleeve, and tilted her head. "Awa," she said, her voice filled with genuine affection. "Little teeth." Zorak froze. In his entire life, spanning 17 cycles, no one had ever responded to his bite with anything other than screams, submission, or death. His teeth were embedded in the human's flesh. He could feel them puncturing the skin, yet she was looking at him the way one might regard a pet. Before he could process this impossible response, Anya reached out with her free hand and booped his nose. The boop echoed through the silent chamber like a gunshot. "Who's a fierce little predator?" Anya cooed. "You are, yes, you are." Warlord Cravish rose from his throne, his bellow shaking the walls. "Release HER, son, tear her apart, show her the price of mockery." But something had happened to Prince Zorak. The human's complete lack of fear had triggered something deep in his predatory instincts, a confusion that came from encountering prey that didn't act like prey. He released her arm, backing away, his pupils dilating in distress. What are you?" he whispered. Anya examined her arm. The bite had indeed drawn blood, a ring of puncture wounds that would need treatment. Lewis was already there with antiseptic spray and synthetic skin patches. "Going to need a tetanus booster," Lewis commented, working efficiently. "And probably some antibiotics. You know how many bacteria live in a carnivore's mouth." I'm a xenobiologist, Anya said to Zorak, ignoring both her wound and the surrounding pandemonium. And you, young prince, are fascinating. Your jaw structure suggests a bite force of approximately 2,400 psi. Your teeth are composed of a calcium-tungsten composite, and your saliva contains at least 3 types of anticoagulant. Impressive. She smiled at him. But you're still a juvenile, aren't you? I'd estimate you're equivalent to a human teenager. That explains the posturing. I am the heir to the Draknari Empire, Zorak protested, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. And I'm sure you'll be very impressive when you're fully grown, Anya said kindly. She reached into her pocket, causing every Draknari in the room to tense, and pulled out a protein bar. Here, you must be hungry if you're trying to bite diplomats. The absurdity of the situation finally penetrated Warlord Cravish's rage. He stared at the human offering his son, his deadly, dangerous son, a snack. You do not fear us, he said slowly. Lewis finished patching Anya's arm and looked up at the Warlord. Fear you? Why would we fear you? We are the apex predators of the galaxy. We have conquered countless worlds. So, Anya unwrapped the protein bar and offered it to Zorak, who took it hesitantly. Warlord Cravish, let me tell you about Earth. Our homeworld is what we call a death world. The gravity is crushing by galactic standards. Our atmosphere is so saturated with oxygen it's practically explosive. We have weather patterns that can flatten cities, ocean predators that dwarf your warriors, and we evolved alongside creatures that made your species look cuddly. She gestured to Lewis. Show them. Lewis pulled up a holographic display. Images flashed across the chamber: great white sharks, saltwater crocodiles, polar bears, African elephants, hippopotami, box jellyfish, and finally, with a sardonic smile, the humble mosquito. That last one, Lewis said, kills more humans per year than any other creature on our planet. We evolved in an environment so hostile that we became persistence hunters. We didn't need venom or claws or natural armor. We developed endurance, intelligence, the ability to work together, and most importantly, we developed pattern recognition sophisticated enough to turn fear into data. Anya nodded. When you bit me, Prince Zorak, my amygdala registered the threat. My sympathetic nervous system triggered, but my prefrontal cortex overrode both and made a calculation. You're young, you're testing boundaries, and you're not actually trying to kill me. If you were, you would have gone for the throat or used your claws. Instead, you went for a non-lethal demonstration. That's not predation, that's communication. Zorak stared at her, slowly chewing the protein bar. It was, he had to admit, delicious. You analyzed my attack. While I was attacking you, he asked. She does that, Lewis confirmed. Last year, a Tharxian deathworm tried to swallow her during a survey mission. By the time I arrived with the extraction team, she'd figured out its digestive cycle and was taking tissue samples from inside its stomach. The acid was only pH 2, Anya said defensively. That's weaker than Earth lemon juice, and the research was invaluable. Warlord Cravish sat back down on his throne, something he'd never done in a diplomatic meeting before. It was a sign of equals, not a conqueror and the conquered. He studied these two humans with new eyes. You are saying, he began carefully, that our greatest weapons mean nothing to you because you have already survived worse on your own world. Not exactly, Anya corrected. Your weapons are impressive, and in a direct confrontation you'd probably win. But fear, intimidation, those only work on prey animals. Humans aren't prey, Warlord. We're the species that looked at wolves, pack hunters with jaws that could crush bone, and said, "You're cute, wanna be friends." We domesticated them. We've done the same with horses, cats, eagles, even snakes and spiders. She looked at Zorak with a gentleness that made the young prince's scales prickle. We have an instinct to nurture young creatures, even young creatures that try to hurt us. It's how we survived. It's why we form families and communities. It's why I looked at your son trying to bite me and saw a scared teenager trying to prove himself, not a threat. Lewis pulled up another image, this time of a human child hugging a massive St. Bernard dog. We let animals with the capability to kill us sleep in our beds, play with our children, become part of our families. Because we learned that cooperation and empathy are stronger survival traits than fear. The chamber was silent. The warlord's advisors looked at each other, their certainty shaken. The other species representatives emerged from hiding, watching the humans with a mixture of awe and confusion. Finally, Prince Zorak spoke. "If I had truly tried to kill you, what would have happened?" Anya's smile didn't waver, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Then Lewis would have activated the neural disruptor he's been holding this entire time. You'd be unconscious, and we'd be having a very different conversation with your father about assault on a diplomatic envoy. Lewis raised his other hand slightly, showing the small device. Grade 7 disruptor. Non-lethal, but you'd wake up with the worst headache of your life, if you woke up at all. But you didn't use it, Zorak said. Because you weren't actually trying to kill her, Lewis replied. Like she said, communication, not combat. Warlord Kravish stood again, but this time he bowed, a gesture of respect the Draknari reserved for fellow warriors. I begin to understand why the other species spoke of humanity with such strange words. They said you were weak, but also that you were dangerous. They said you were prey, but also that you were predators. I see now that you are neither and both. Anya returned the bow. We're humans, Warlord. We're the species that looked at the stars and decided to visit them, even though space is trying to kill us every second we're out here. We're the species that makes friends with creatures that want to eat us. We're soft and squishy and slow, but we're also stubborn, adaptable, and we have a really hard time taking threats seriously. She winked at Zorak, especially threats from teenagers with little teeth. The prince's scales flushed with embarrassment, but he couldn't suppress what might have been, impossibly, a laugh. Perhaps, Warlord Kravish said thoughtfully, we should reconsider these trade negotiations as a partnership rather than a conquest. Now you're talking, Lewis said, picking up his datapad again. Page 3, paragraph 7, I think we can find terms that benefit both our peoples. And Warlord, we know a great dentist if your son needs his teeth checked. That bite force could probably use a professional evaluation. As the negotiations continued, now as equals rather than conqueror and conquered, Anya caught Zorak staring at her patched arm. It'll heal, she assured him. Humans are good at that too. We're not tough because we can't be hurt. We're tough because we heal and keep going. The young prince nodded slowly, beginning to understand that he hadn't encountered weakness in the diplomatic chamber that day. He'd encountered something far more dangerous, a species that transformed every threat into a learning experience and every enemy into a potential friend. And somewhere in his predatory heart, he felt the first stirrings of what humans called respect. As for Anya, she was already wondering if the Draknari would let her study their evolutionary biology. After all, how often did you meet a species with calcium-tungsten teeth? The galaxy, she thought with a smile, just kept getting more interesting.